All right, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Let's continue to explore the Python documentation. We've looked at strings. We've looked at how to work with some certain aspects of strings. But now we want to continue to still look at strings. It's actually more like a complex subject. But what we want to do now is to look at how to indexing and slicing with strings. So I'm going to call this index slice, just so I know what we're working with. Now, strings can be indexed, and by indexing we mean to subscript that string. And the first character usually has an index of 0. And it's worth noting that there's no separate character type for characters in Python. So a character is simply a string that is of one size. It's a string that is of size 1. So let's say we have this word and we call this Python. Right? If we want to get the first word, the first character there, all we need to do is just to print word 0. That's the first character, and it usually starts at 0. And most programming languages do. We can't say all programming languages because R doesn't. Our programming language doesn't. But in Python and in most other programming languages, it starts at 0. And if we print this out, let's see what we have here. I would change this to current file. And once I run this, you can see the first character there is P, which is at index 0. Now, indices could also be, so let's look at the last one. For instance, if we want to know what this is, how do you get that? You start counting at 0. This would be 0. This is 0. This is 1. This is 2. This is 3. This is 4. And this is 5. So if what you want is this n, for instance, we do something like print word 5, and that would give us n. So let's run this again. We have P and we have n. Now, indices may also be negative numbers, so to start counting from the right. And this is very useful. For instance, if you want to reverse a word, a string, it's easier to look at it from the right-hand side of things. So say I'm going to comment this out, and the same thing here. So let's say you want to use the negative, you want to index using the negative numbers. The way you do that is we do print word. Now this is -1. Recall that this is 0. In numbering, 0 and -0 are the same thing. And so if we say -0, what we'll still get is this, right? And just so we see that in action, if you print that, you still get P, right? But what we want is here. So Python is such that it allows you to also use the negative type of indexing. So if we say -1, it starts counting from here, and it just prints out just this last one. And if I run that, I'm expected to see n as the output. Now, similarly, if it's the second character that I want to the right, which is this, all I just need to do is just to -2, and you see that here. And what's interesting is that if you do this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. And so if you want to print P, looking at the negative indexing way, you do -6, and that will give P. And I have explained that the reason for starting at -1 is because 0 and -0 are the same thing. And we've also shown that by doing an example here. All right, so let's see what is the difference. Let's talk about slicing. In addition to indexing, slicing is also supported in Python. And so the difference between slicing and indexing is that indexing is used to obtain an individual character. And as you can see, all we've been doing so far, or all we've done so far, is to index. And what we've gotten as our output so far is just single character. But in slicing, it allows you to obtain substring. So let's say, for instance, we want to obtain substring from this same thing, this same word, and this means that I want to print the substring, and let me just interpret this. I want to print the substrings of what is stored in this word variable. I want to print the substring starting at 0, at index 0, but excluding index 2. And so if we count from here, we see 0, 1, because it excludes these 2. So think of it like excluding 2 and above. That's just what it means. And so if we print this out, we expect to see PY. And let me just print that out, and you see PY. And if we can also do it this way, where we have, let's say we want to print word 2:5. What do you think this would give? And again, look at it from here. This is the first index, 0, 1, 2. And so we expect to see the result starting at T. And we know that it's up to but not including the 5th index. Up to, but not including the 5th index. So if this is the 2nd index, this is the 3rd index, let's add that there. This is the 4th index, let's add that there. But it's excluding the 5th index, which is this right here. So if we print this out, we expect to see THO. And let's see if that's what we get, at exactly what we have here. So that's how to, and as you can see, we have more than a character. And that's the difference between indexing and slicing. Another example we can look at here is to slice indexes. They have useful defaults. So you can omit the first index that defaults to 0. You can omit the 2nd index that defaults to the size of the string that is being sliced. So let's say we have something like, and again, let me just comment this out so we don't have to confuse things together. Let's say I would print word :2. And what this means is that I want to print the character from the beginning to position 2. Now, excluding position 2. Again, just the same thing that we talked about here. So this is more like saying, okay, there's an arbitrary 0 here, which we're not seeing, but we don't want to include that. So you expect to see the same output here. And let me just comment this so that you can see, compare what we have here with what we have here. And it should be the same thing. And let's see if that's true. And as you can see, we have PY, PY. And similarly, it's also possible for us to flip it the other way around, where we say, okay, we want to print word 4 through the end. And let me comment this out, and I'll comment this out as well. So if I do this, it's just saying that characters from position 4. And notice that this is included. Usually what is not included is the one at this right hand side to the column. So this is not going to be included, but this is going to be included. As in this case, position, whatever is at position 2 following the index is not included, but what we have here gets included. And so we are starting at index 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we expect to see here O, it starts at O and it should end at the end. And this just says end it at the end. So whatever you have here, it doesn't matter if you say Pythonista, whatever you have there is just start at index 4 and print all the way to the end. And let's see what happens there. As you can see, we have Onista. And just so we confirm, we can print out the word and let's see what we have at index 4. And you should see that that is O. All right. So let's move on to say that we can also use that negative indexing like we mentioned the other time. So how we do that is, again, remember that what we are doing here is exploring the Python documentation. We can also do -2. And so this is saying that start from the second last index. You know, we talked about this the other time, and let me just get rid of what we had here before. You know, I mentioned this the other time that when it's also possible for us to count from this from the font where we have -1 as the N and -2 as the O. And so if we want to count from that -2 all the way to the end, we can also do it the same way as this. And so what this means is that it's possible for us to have this same thing, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same thing we would also have here because this is -1 and -2. And so let's print that out and let's see what we have. And if you look at this, we have the same result from following these two codes. Let's go ahead to see other things that we can do. Now, how the start is always included. Note that the start is always included. This is always included, but this is not always, the end is always excluded. And so that's one thing to note. The start is always included, the end is always excluded. And so if you take, so say for instance, we say print word, let's say we have word something up to 2, and let's say we want to add that to word 2 to the end. Recall that this 2 is not going to be included in this output. However, in this one, it gets included. And so let's see what we have here. Let's see what we have here. We should have the entire Python. And what happened here is just that it starts at the beginning. Remember how we talked about this? We also ran it here, if you still recall. It starts at the beginning here, all the way to index 2, but not including that 2, right? And here it starts at index 2, including that index 2, and excluding, of course, all the way to the end here, because there's nothing there. And it's the same thing that happens if we say we want to print word this, and then we say plus word everything here. 4, start at 4 and all the way to the end. This starts at the beginning all the way to, but not including the 4th index. And this starts at the 4th index all the way to the end. And so we'll still get the same output, which is Python. All right. So that's what I want to show you in this video. We'll see a little bit of caveat to this in the next video. I don't want this to be too long, but yeah, see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.